Alrighty, everybody, it's showtime at the Ohio. Oh, wait. Did I literally just say showtime at the Ohio? This isn't showtime at the Apollo. It's at the Ohio. Cleveland, Ohio. For the 2016 Republican National Convention. It's Roya Rockwood at the 2016 Republican National Convention. I'm your host, Roya Rockwood. Unfortunately, nobody else intended to join with me because nobody wanted to talk about the coronation of Donald Trump. But enough about any kind of introductions, let's get right down to business. So starting off, we actually forgot to mention something during the pregame show, and that was actually the shooting down in Baton Rouge. Because following the events that happened with Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge about, I'm going to say, 8 to 10 days before the shooting on Sunday happened, as well as whatever happened elsewhere, like in Minnesota, and then the massacre of 5 officers and the injuring of 6 down in Dallas. We ended up having another major police shooting in the Baton Rouge area, I think literally a few blocks away from what happened with Alton Sterling. And as a result, this kind of is interfering with the way that we view domestic justice as well as how we need to handle criminal justice reform. Oddly enough, that actually shrouded the convention's opening more than the actual convention itself. Nothing really started to come into place on Sunday. And the fact that that had basically taken over Sunday, since it was, the pregame show, nobody expected it would happen, but of course, that changed the entire course of how day one would become. And that is why that's why for day one, the Republicans were using the Make America Safe Again campaign, which I understand, but you'll probably see later on that the Make America Safe campaign would probably be more like martial law in many, many different regards. And that's the one problem I do have with the modern Republican Party, and wishfully, we don't have to worry about that going into 2017 and later on. I will get more into the matter on Black Lives Matter and whatnot later on, but for now, this is at least what I was kind of unfortunately subjected to having to find out about. And I was watching Face the Nation when it occurred. So, obviously, out of respect, my condolences do go to those that have lost their lives, and also those who have been hurt. There were 8 injured. There were 8 that were hurt in the current Baton Rouge police shooting. 5 of them survived. More than likely, they'll last. It was probably just like minor brazings or whatever. I haven't checked any of the logs, so I wholeheartedly apologize if I have any kind of inaccuracies on that matter. But with that said, on to subject number 2, and that is Hillary Rodham speaking at the NAACP convention in Cincinnati, literally a good amount of cities away from Cleveland. Much to, of course, the shock and surprise of plentiful people, Donald actually did not go to this convention. If my memory serves correctly, Bob Dole was the last one to not do that. Yeah, Senator Bob Dole, I think he had declined to go to the NAACP convention, what was that, in 1996, while he was duking it out with Bill Clinton. For the most part, what Hillary had basically mentioned is stuff that we already know about. The progression of the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as the fact that there needs to be better criminal justice reform in order to protect the rights and the dignity of Afro Americans. What I do believe, however, is that in most cases, I do feel that it's not just the Afro Americans that deserve better respect from the authorities. It also deserves to be the Hispanics, especially up here in the north, where they get attacked the most, usually with rather harsh crimes or harsh charges. And also Amerasians, particularly Chinese people. Because it's not mentioned much in the media, but we're seeing more Hispanics and Amerasians getting attacked by officers or wrongfully arrested and or convicted of crimes that they did not commit, or to higher charges that were never supposed to be imposed. So I feel that alongside with what Hillary said at the NAACP convention in Cincinnati, I do personally believe that this is a matter that all races, especially Hispanics and Amerasians, deserve to have better treatment on. Everything, however, has to become a better balance if we want to have true criminal justice reform in this country. I cannot stress that enough. Trust me, you will understand why I say that if things get worse, which I hope does not happen. On to subject 3. Stephen Colbert takes over the RNC. Oh, man. Now, bear in mind, this episode is recorded literally after The Late Show ended and the opening to The Late Late Show with James Corden. So, Steve basically opened up the 2016 Republican National Convention with the Hungry for Power games. Yes, he was in his Hungry for Power games getup, and some people actually did record the event live. Unfortunately, it was not in 60 frames per second in 1080p Super HD or better. We had to wait until the main broadcast to see that happen. But, unfortunately, the security guards did not like it. They did not like the fact that he was talking about Hillary Rodham, and they basically kicked him off after about what I assume was 91 seconds of discussion, or 91 seconds of announcement. And if you did not see the Late Show episode today, or throughout this, or throughout the course of this night, you probably might want to watch it. There's a lot of interesting stuff that I'll mention later on in this episode that had happened. You'll thank me later. And of course, now we come into the 1 p.m. portions of the convention, or at least 1 p.m. Eastern time. They start at noon. And they end at 10, or sometime around 10, which is 11 our time, because Ohio is Central Standard Time, just to clarify. Now, I'm sure that a lot of you might not actually expect this out of anything regarding North American politics, or at least the way that we have educated our kids to promote or to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I've always had an issue with the current rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance, and that was more or less because of the implementation of the words "under God." Of course, because it's the Republican Party, obviously they would be using "under God" in the Pledge of Allegiance. It makes total sense. What I do not appreciate, however, is that I feel that it has been put too much over the top. If my memory serves correctly, it was 1951 where they first had started using it. This was, I think, during the beginning era of the Cold War, or sometime around it. The reason why they implemented "under God" was more or less so that they could go up against how do I say it? Dang. Oh, that's right. They wanted to do that so that they could promote some form of religion against Russia's atheism, or promotion of atheism in the 50s and 60s. Whenever I say the Pledge of Allegiance, I deliberately exclude "under God." Yes, I use the 1940X or early renditions of it. Yeah, the June 22, 1942 version of it. But in recent time, as of 2013, I always use the following. This one is from, what year is this from? This one I think is between 1910 and 1923. I apologize if I have this butchered. This is, let's see, who's Bellamy? Edward Bellamy. Yes, I use Edward Bellamy's version of the pledge, which is as follows. I pledge allegiance to my flag and the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I do believe that if anybody truly wanted to get rid of religion in this country, or at least have true separation of church and state. That's what I mean. If somebody wanted to have true separation of church and state, you would modify the pledge to sound something more like this. And that is definitely what I would ensure if I were ever the president of this nation. Whether you like it or not, that's at least how I view it. I do not feel that we deserve to have the pledge be a church role. It never deserved to be. And that also actually takes me into subject number 5, the Star-Spangled Banner. Now, I'm somebody that grew up learning back in 2003 that the Star-Spangled Banner and a good amount of our American songs, North American anthems, have 3 verses or more. The version of the Star-Spangled Banner that you listen to on TV or any kind of like major sporting event or political event, even a presidential inauguration, you're only hearing the first verse. You're not hearing the whole song. The whole song, I think, takes about 5-6 minutes to fully sing. One of these days, I actually do intend to read out the whole thing of the Star-Spangled Banner. Okay, the Star-Spangled Banner, and I do feel that if anybody intends to sing it, heck, if I ever intended to sing it, I actually won't sing it. I will read it. I will read it for the sake of convenience. That way you are able to know the full content or the full context of the anthem. And I feel that more TV shows, especially political conventions, national conventions, need to start having it. Failure to have that will only result in inaccuracy and making things a bit too abridged for comfort. That's the best way I could put it without it sounding too out of place. Which actually leads me into number 6, a cover band. Really? Okay, let me be clear. The Republican National Convention could not have an official band of any sort, so what they did was they got a cover band. They got a cover band playing a whole bunch of songs we recognize from the 60s, the 70s, and select portions of the 80s and early 90s. Maybe some other material. I think I heard some rap music in there from the 2000s, or 2010X decade. But other than that, I understand why the Donald Trump National Convention would have cover songs like this, but I do believe that if you're going to have a convention and you're going to have music, get the original band. It does make me wonder, though, if the singers of those respective bands actually approve of their music being even covered at what is a heavily right-wing, far-right biased event. I can't tell you. And we're going to have to hear those songs for another 3 days. That is not what I want. No, not whatsoever. Duck that. No. Just no. I'll have to mute every single time they play music. I don't even know what to say about that. Subject 7. Donald and Mike Pence are virtually 2 different candidates. I can actually highly believe that. Because as you know, in the matter regarding both Donald and Mike, obviously we've viewed a lot of matters, especially on the matter of the Iraq War and abortion. You know, Donald has always been against the Iraq War from day one. He knew that it was a wrong thing for North America to get into, and it really didn't do much of anything. I personally believe it didn't do much of anything. A good amount of the Democrats, and especially Bernie Sanders, if my memory serves correctly, also disagrees with the fact that the Iraq War was a war that North America was never supposed to get into. I am sure that most people will know now from Leslie Stahl's 60 Minutes interview. Leslie Stahl's from Lynn as well, by the way. Mike Pence, if my memory serves correctly, also voted for the war in Iraq. And I'm not sure about in Afghanistan, to be truthful. That is one area that I'm sure that both of them are heavily at an imbalance about. On the matter of abortion, you know, Donald has been on record for saying that he is pro-choice. I'll be truthful. I also do believe that men must not say what a woman can do with her body. A woman rightfully deserves to have to do an abortion either for physical issues or because they cannot keep the baby or because of other complications that could occur in future time, whether they are personal, whether they are legal, or anything else. Of course, however, Mike Pence, as I stated in the predictions and anticipations episode, he's been on record for saying, he can't wait for the day that the Roe versus Wade outcome gets overturned and thrown out, which I do believe would be a fatal mistake. Keyword being fatal because of the fact that that would trigger a massively strong incline in overpopulation. We're already overpopulated in North America as is. Why the heck don't you think I'll be truthful about this. I actually don't intend on having children until 2034, and that is for good reason. I do not believe that it is correct for me to have a child in a time where we are in such a horrid position of, we're in a horrid position with the way that our environment is, our politics, as well as our security and economic stability. It would be wrong of me to create a child now as opposed to 2034. Roughly about 18 years from, more than 18 years from now, I would intend on having that kid around the month of November. It might sound as ridiculous as probable, but the fact that both Donald and Mike have an imbalanced view on that, I mean, this is like the ultimate political odd couple. Even though, yes, there are some similarities that can make them virtually the utmost anti-woman or semi-pro-war candidacy, which I would hope that some of you actually agree with me on. That kind of makes sense. But I think you'll probably find out more later on, especially when we go into Night 3, once we truly hear what Mike Pence has to really say about what his real ambitions are and what his real intentions would be if Donald were to become president and Mike Pence become vice president. Now, there is a possibility that Mike could end up being vice president, but we'd have a Democratic or other party president. Bear in mind, and this is just out of... this is based on my knowledge of grade 12 history and structure of U.S. government. If my memory serves correctly, you can have a Democratic president with a Republican vice president, and that I think all comes down to how the electoral votes are. Because I think in most scenarios, like you can have the electoral votes or the electoral college vote. They have to vote, I think, individually for both the president and the vice president alone. I don't think they vote for both of them on the same ticket. So there could be a scenario where you could see a Republican president and a Democratic vice president, or an independent president with a Green Party vice president, Bernie Stein, or a Libertarian president and a Democratic vice president. Why not? The possibilities are virtually endless, but that's an extreme rarity, and that only happens, I think, in a deadlocked situation. Especially in scenarios where, like, if nobody has the amount of electoral votes needed to win, it then goes to a vote in the Senate, if my memory serves correctly. This is just based on stuff I remember from history and structure of U.S. government. I don't actually remember if most of this is true. I hope most of it is, though. Somebody fact-check me, just in case. Onward to Hispanics, yet again, because of the fact that Donald's favorability amongst Hispanics is actually pretty ducking low. 11 to 89%. I mean, Doc, I've never seen that before. 89% unfavorability. I couldn't imagine a race, or at least virtually an entire nationality of Central and Southern Americans be just this mad at a white guy. And I can understand why. I can understand why, especially because, you know, Donald wants to have stronger enforcement on immigration standards for Hispanics, particularly Central and Southern American immigrants that are trying to get away from the drug cartels and, I don't know, from other issues that have come up in their own lives, or if they want to have good-paying jobs so that they can go back to wherever country they are and live in riches, so to speak. Because I think that the currency conversion rate in Central and South America is rather massive. In 2007, 800 pesos. You want to know how much 800 Mexican pesos was in 2007? $73 US. You can fact check me on that. That is indeed accurate. I saw that on National Geographic. Of course I would recognize anything that National Geographic says. And that is a rather shocker. In modern day, I think the Mexican peso has, however, I think decreased in worth because of inflation. So I think that it's actually more now. I can actually check for you right now what that is. I'm surprised I'm even doing this in a commentary that I'm trying to be, you know, rather quick about, because I'm already about 21 minutes in. I don't want this to exceed more than an hour, but it's probably going to reach 2 hours because we've got so many topics to talk about. So let's see. So US dollar to Mexican peso. Come on. Can I type any faster with one hand? Okay. It's 18.44 Mexican pesos to $1. So 73 US dollars. Whoa, I think this is almost a 100, I think it's more than a 150% increase. Yeah, more than a 150% increase. 1,346.04 Mexican pesos equals 73 US dollars now, as opposed to how the $800 to $73 was in 2007. That's good for North Americans that have a US dollar, but that's not good for Mexicans, or at least those that reside in Mexico that live off their currency. We clearly need deflation of all of our currency so that everything else is practically balanced, so that nobody's living in poverty. But I digress. We'll talk about the economy wishfully in nights 2 and 3. We'll talk about that later at the very end of this episode. What I do want to get into now is actually the fact that we have had a powerful low in terms of Afro Americans in this convention. Only 18 Afro American pledged delegates are present at this convention this year. I think even, Bob Schieffer said earlier tonight that this is possibly lower than the amount of Afro-Americans that were present at Barry Goldwater's convention in 1964. That is scary. And also because of the fact that even though yes you see black people in some of Donald's ads, I think actually the first ad that he had showcased here in Massachusetts, it had a black guy in it. But oddly enough, in places such as Pennsylvania, you know, since Donald has had, he has insulted Afro-Americans just as much as he has with women, with Hispanics, with Muslims, as well as Amerasians. In select areas, he has 0% approval from Afro-Americans. This includes, if the notes are correct, the entire state of Pennsylvania. My goodness. And bear in mind, we have never seen this before by a good amount of people. This is unprecedented, I think. I think this is the first time this has ever happened. And that's a lot for me to admit, because I wouldn't have ever thought that we would see something such as this in political history. But it is clear to me that, you know, Afro-Americans want real political reform, and they can't trust any Republican candidate. That's why Hillary Rodham has the good amount of black voters in her run of the Democratic side of everything. Next topic. This was actually a bit of an interesting one. Yes, so about 100 women, actually, they decided to strip down and they were posing nude. That's right, posing nude with these big dishes in front of them. And this was all in protest of the Republican National Convention. They were walking down the streets of Ohio, hanging out in open fields with their bodies free and happy. This is the kind of protesting I like to see. And especially in a time where we have seen so much political campaign for the freedom of a woman, not just like on the matter of abortion, but also in how we amend First Amendment rights. Especially with the 2012 campaign, Free the Nipple, which I am entirely supportive of. For the longest time, I have had to have an MA-17 content rating for my local material, and things you don't see here online. All of my offline material that involves nude women, if their breasts are fully exposed, if their nipples are exposed, I have to give it an MA-17 content rating for suggestive themes. Suggestive themes could mean anything, including sexual content. To be truthful, even though, with both men and Puritan values that have been in North America for a long time, it is a shame, it is an insult for the fact that we still have the female breast be so sexualized to the point where they can't simply walk out on the beach and be fully bare. Or other things. I mean, heck, I was flashed at the beach once by somebody that would later become a good friend. This is the kind of stuff I don't normally talk about, but I'm happy to talk about it for the sake of making this commentary in any way, shape, or form entertaining. I would not be surprised, however, if we see later on in the next decade, assuming that we have a Bernie Sanders-style president, if we were to see more women's rights heavily present, if we were to see free to nipple actually become a legitimate law, where a woman could go out in public and not have to worry because their breasts are exposed. Which is why I also do believe that these 100 women that had posed nude to protest at the convention, we also do need stronger laws to protect nudists. That is the big thing that I pick up out of this. Because if the way that I view it, oh my goodness, somebody's driving erratically outside. We have a lot of drag racers here in Lynn. They need to be arrested. But I digress. What has been going on, I would say if we were to have a Republican president, especially somebody such as Donald, I do not believe that nudists would be properly protected under the law. So we need to be able to have stronger protection rights for them so that they don't end up getting put on the sex offender registry as a level 1 sex offender. Because I also do remember down in Florida, there was this couple that got arrested, and they ended up getting, they were almost subjected to, I think, 18 years on the sex offender registry. Level 1, mind you. Just for having sex on the beach. Just for having sex on the beach. Yes, I understand sex in public is rendered as indecent exposure. I know it is rendered as, I don't know what kind of misdemeanor or felony it is. But I do not believe that somebody just hanging out casually in the nude, especially if they are nudist, deserves to be arrested. I do not believe that. So wishfully, we do not have a Republican president at any point that would prevent that from being a reality. That would prevent nudism from being a legal reality in this country. At least that's how I view this. That is literally how I view this. Now, going into some protest in the next subject. So, a good minority of pledged delegates, they have kind of felt that their voices have been rendered as unheard. They sadly unsuccessfully were able to obtain a roll call, because I do feel that at a convention, there needs to be a roll call to show how many pledged delegates are for which candidate at any given point in time. But the way that they had handled it, it's kind of the same way as how the Nevada Democratic Convention was for their primary, where because everybody was yelling so much, both Hillary and Bernie supporters, when they had the calls for the ayes, that is unfortunately why the Bernie delegates were not heard out properly, and that's why it went into the riot that it did, or the alleged riot that it did. Bear in mind, it was mostly Hillary supporters and the authorities attacking Bernie supporters, even though yes, I can take the credit for saying that some Bernie delegates had, I guess, gone out of their way to maybe make some attacks. Whether or not it was in self-defense is entirely out of my knowledge. I cannot say anything at this time about that. Not whatsoever. This is also an article that I don't know if it's accurate. This one came about late Sunday going into early Monday. Bush 43, yes, George Walker Bush. Bush 43's administration is apparently supposed to reunite for the convention show discussion or something. I don't know when that's going to be. Wishfully, maybe during day 3 or day 4. But we'll have to see. Again, we're talking about Bush 2000. We're not talking about Bush 04. So you're going to get people like, obviously you're going to get Colin Powell. I think Condoleezza Rice is also in there. You're going to get Dick Cheney. It's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a fun time with all these guys. Especially because of the fact that I joke so much about Dick Cheney on this channel. Well, actually, no. About that, and I'm sure that a good amount of you that have watched my other material on here, especially gaming commentaries, understand. Whenever I say Dick Cheney, I am actually using that as censorship for the penis. It is a better censorship over the male C word. You understand why I am saying it. It is a pain in the Dick Cheney to have to explain Dick Cheney in the form of my censored swearing. But hey, if you appreciate that it's a pain in the Dick Cheney to talk about Dick Cheney this way, I think we can all enjoy Dick Cheney. oh man. But alongside the issue regarding, alongside the fact that, Bush 43's administration might actually reunite for the show, a lot of high-profile Republicans will not be showing up at this convention, either because of their distaste for Donald Trump or because of personal matters. Because all the Bushes are not going. I don't think you're going to see Barbara Bush. You're probably not going to see Laura, unless if I missed something in the CBS footage. Bushes 41, 43, and Jeb are not going one bit. Oh, sorry, Jeb. I can never get that said right, especially because of the fact that there's people asleep in the house. So it's not easy for me to be able to yell, Jeb. I have to be rather at a low. I can't even talk like Gilbert Gottfried at this moment. It sounds very low. Alongside that, John McCain said that he would be hanging out in South Dakota just because, he doesn't want to hang out at the convention. Sarah Palin actually will not be there for personal reasons, and it's 2 reasons, I believe. Number one, as she said, it's too far away from her Alaska home. She doesn't have time to fly in and make it, even though, yes, she endorses Donald. Number 2, and I apologize if I have the wrong person in this case, but if my memory serves correctly, I think her husband ended up in some freak accident and he's recovering. I wouldn't be surprised if she did not go to the convention so that she could be by his side. I feel that is a better move in her regard. She is better off being at a not at the convention. She's better off being where she is needed most. The convention is not where she's needed most at this time. Even though, of course, she would be very entertaining. I would not be surprised if many independents called her the... I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it. I don't want to punch anybody in the Dick Cheney or the all right. Enough. Let's just get to the next portion. Security at the convention. Okay, this is something I believe that John Kasich needs to do. And before I continue on here, I almost forgot. Didn't Marco Rubio also say that he wouldn't be going? If he didn't, I apologize, but that is at least from reports that I've seen on CBS and ABC, as well as certain portions of NBC and Fox. But I digress. So back to the matter on security at the convention. Now, Ohio's an open carry state. This basically means, if you've got a license to carry, you can just walk around with your gun. Doesn't matter what it is. You can just walk around with your gun. It could be an AR-15. It could be an AK-47. Heck, it could be a Thompson machine gun from the 30s and 40s for all we care, and you could just walk around with it in Ohio. What I do worry about, and even though we do have a significant hatred or significant distaste for the Republican Party, the majority of Royans don't like the Republican Party. I'm just talking about them because this is kind of my job right now. I don't want to see them get murdered. I just don't want to see them in office. I don't want them to get murdered, though. So I truly do hope that the over 4,000 officers, including Massachusetts State Police, that are there at this showcase, at this convention, are able to prevent snipers and other assassins from trying to take the stage and murderize any kind of Republican member or even any celebrity that shows up. That would indeed be that would make headlines if something such as that were to happen, especially if it were broadcast live. I'm sure, however, that security will be very strong and rampant, especially during day 4, when Donald decides to accept the nomination, assuming that protesters and the delegate minority cannot sway the outcome. I mean, it is possible. It could happen. We don't know, but it could happen. We'll have to see. But all that I hope is that, nobody actually gets hurt. That would be the worst case scenario. We don't want that anywhere on anybody's record, or even on video. Even though I'm sure it would probably be on video if it were broadcast live. So I guess it could be a 50-50 scenario for us. Now, throughout the speeches, everybody decided to make a good speech here and there, whether or not you liked it, depending on what party affiliation you are, or just depending on your own political views. But one of the things that I do feel horrible about, especially when they're talking about domestic and foreign policy, far as I know, from what I've seen currently at the convention, no discussion on cybersecurity. That is scary, especially because day one was all about security. Cybersecurity, the fact that was lowly talked about, I do not believe that deserves to be, kind of swept under the rug. It's kind of like what Lynn did here when Superintendent Dr. Catherine Latham's administration had decided to be negligent when Lynn Public Schools X Drive got hacked in September and October of 2012. It is an insult that people such as me had to bring up that topic. And I'm sure that will negatively affect how Campaign 2017 will be here in the city, whether I run for mayor or not. I do believe, however, that we need stronger cybersecurity. We also need to prevent our information from becoming compromised and into the wrong hands, regardless of if it's domestic or if it's international. I also do believe that we need to prevent having weapons of mass surveillance, as what Edward Snowden had exposed to us, there needs to be stronger ways in the way that we handle the monitoring of people. And I do believe that we must only monitor those that we do believe are a major threat. Monitoring just random strangers that have a clean slate record, that is an unjust way of handling matters. Stealing information without any form of warning or just for the sake of, I don't know, collecting money. That is unjust and unruly. This, I believe, that the Republican Party needs to start talking about, and it is a shame that they did not do so tonight, or today for that matter. That is something that they will need to talk about during the general election, and I hope maybe a Republican sees this so that they understand what is really going on out there in our nation. They need to start knowing that we need stronger cybersecurity, and we need the best hackers to be able to prevent our servers from being monitored or interfered from international and even domestic and local criminals. That's at least the best way I can view it without feeling that there is something majorly wrong aside from what I've already mentioned. On to the next portion, and I'm quite surprised that now Jeff Sessions, during his speech, he had talked about the matter of the $4,000 plus decline, $4,000 plus dollar decline in the nation's median family income. This is actually something ripped straight out of Bernie Sanders' campaign ad, because he had even mentioned, again, since 1999, we have seen the median family income decrease to $4,000 less. Please bear in mind, we are talking about a family of four, two working parents and two kids that don't make any money, two kids that are just in school. And I admit that, yes, it has been at a massive imbalance for a long while we're seeing the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. We have also seen an increase in this issue here in Lynn, actually, and I'm happy that I can bring this up so that more people can understand where we truly stand. Because in Southeast, and East Lynn, we see median family incomes range from $18,000 going to as high as $82,000. Please bear in mind, this also includes single-parent homes. But the fact that somebody can only make about $15,000 to $18,000 at minimum, that is an insult. All other portions of Lynn, especially the West Lynn's median family income, get ready for this, $100,000 to $162,000 a year. Pay close attention to that. That is an 82 to, what is it? I'm going to need to pump up a calculator for this. Let's see, 162 minus 18. That can be an 82,000, is it 82,000? Yeah, $82,000 to $144,000 imbalance. And it's been that way since 2000. For the past 17 years here in Lynn, we have seen East Lynn have lower median family incomes than the West. Why is that? Why is it that the West, particularly white West Lynn, have higher family incomes ranging between $100,000 and $162,000, while East Lynn and Southeast Lynn are getting peasant wages? That is unacceptable. If we truly want to have a proper balance of wages in this city, for example, I do believe that we need to have it so that not only is income inequality abolished, but also so that we do have a livable wage, $15 an hour or better. In fact, had we kept the minimum wage intact, and this is based on the Bernie speech, the minimum wage, had it remained intact since 1981, when it was originally discontinued, to my memory, The minimum wage now, if based on inflation and productivity standards, would be $26 an hour. $26 an hour. That is livable by today's standards, at the very least. People would not have to worry about not having rent for their apartments, or not being able to afford that new car or house that they want to buy, or, I don't know, that engagement ring that a woman wants to give a man. Yes, I do believe that a woman deserves to do the proposal to the man. In fact, that is actually how I feel that if I were to ever get married, I would want my wife, or future wife for that matter, to propose to me. I will not be the one to do it. But as you can see here, Jeff Sessions makes a point. You know, even though, yes, he said a lot of other things that I pretty much don't approve of, this is the one thing that stuck out. And I feel that, yes, we need to remedy this issue with the $4,000 decline in the nation's median family income since 1999. We need to start getting people back to work. This also means that immigrants also need to be put to work and not just living off of the government's standards. This also means that people need to stop abusing Section 8. And this also goes for regular American citizens as well. That is also another reason why we have bad income inequality. Our taxpayer money is going to the wrong people. It's kind of like welfare fraud. Remember that episode of Family Guy? Family Guy episode 1, Death Has a Shadow. Peter ends up getting a $150,000 a week welfare check just because of a typo. It's things such as that I do believe is also negatively affecting our the way that our taxpayer money is handled, and that also needs to be remedied in future times so that we don't have that kind of an imbalance, which is also negatively affecting the economy and the income of all families all around the nation, especially in rural and suburban areas such as here in Lynn. I could go on for days about this, but I'm already at the 47-minute mark. Let's continue. Funny enough, Scott Baio from Happy Days. Scott Baio from Happy Days was there. He still looks good. Still looks pretty good. Why is he at a Republican convention? I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Of all people, I would have never thought that Scott Baio would show up at the convention. Now, unfortunately, because of the fact that I was watching this from CBS's live stream, I did not actually get to really hear much about what Scott Baio was saying. So, yeah, we only ended up getting the last few minutes of what he, or the last few seconds of what he was saying. And one of the things he said was, let's make America America again. And I understand why he says this, because at this point in the campaign season, or at this point in time, really, you know, after the post-Bill Clinton years, actually, I'd say after the post-Jimmy Carter years, during Reagan 80, North America has been in shambles. It has been in shambles financially. It has been in shambles, not just financially, but also environmentally. It has been in shambles internationally. It has been in shambles on the matters of the security, and also because partisan politics have dominated the nation far worse than we have ever seen in the history of this nation. I do not like where this nation is going because of the fact that it is in shambles. And so, yes, I do agree with Scott Baio that we need to reclaim certain values that made North America great in the first place. We needed a clear-cut message. We need a clear-cut message, similar as to what George Washington wanted for this nation way back in 1776 or earlier. And I do feel that things will only get better from this point if we make sure to do the right thing and step up to what is making America horrible at this point in time, even if it is still great in quality in some way, shape, and form. Looks like we're in the final, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 portions of this particular commentary. Okay, So let's continue with some protesting that had gone on. So the first matter that we've seen of the day or the night in terms of people getting escorted out was actually a woman from Code Pink getting escorted out by security. Now, I guess she was I don't know if she was talking about the fact that immigrants deserve to be allowed into this country and also find ways to combat racism. And I guess that a whole bunch of Trump supporters didn't like that. Some big guy was just using his two hands to cover her face. Fortunately, he didn't assault her, or else he would have probably gotten arrested. But it is a shame that, protesters are getting wrongfully escorted out in such offensive ways. Protesters do have rights too. What I do not believe is that legal authorities have to take them down, especially if they are doing non-violent protesting. Alongside that, somebody had a banner. It was on the east wing of the Republican National Convention arena. And what you could have seen, it said "Immigrants Welcome." Obviously, somebody down in the lower corridor or the lower portion of the arena didn't like that. Called up security and got that person escorted out. Sadly. And I will be truthful, the more that we go into this convention, once we get into days 3 and 4, you're going to see lots and lots of protests. You'll be seeing it in the beginning, you'll be seeing it in the middle, you'll be seeing it in the end. This is only the beginning of it, and it will only get more and more massive. Fortunately, right now it's not violent, but it could become more and more violent as times go on. We don't know what to expect. Wishfully, things don't go too insane for comfort. That's all I ask. That is all that I ask. And then on to the next topic, Rudy Giuliani. Again, I can't get enough of this guy. Even though, yes, we do have a lot of disagreements. Oh, hang on. Okay, sorry about that. I was apparently called upstairs because of nightmare issues. I apologize. Okay, so what was I trying to say? Oh, right, Rudy Giuliani. Yes. So, again, I have a rather balanced view of Rudy Giuliani. I do feel that he has done a good amount of good for the state of New York. Even though, yes, I do feel that some of his political mindsets are based on stuff from like the 90s or just pretty much all 20th century. Some stuff that doesn't really work. And, I'll be truthful. When he was on Face the Nation 2 Sundays ago, that was the, the 11th? The 10th. Okay, it was the 10th. And the issue that I had felt that I feel that he is rather dated on is actually the matter that I believe that a lot of us believe it needs to be changed, because I understand what Rudy Giuliani means when he says that all lives matter, and this also goes in the case of blues. What I do not feel that he deserves to take into consideration is the fact that, sure, we do have black-on-black gang violence, and that usually makes up for about 87 to 92% or 87 to 93% of a good amount of crimes that happen to Afro Americans. What the Black Lives Matter movement has stated, however, or at least clearly imposes, is the fact that there are too many officers that are predominantly white, that are basically hurting people, particularly Afro Americans, for the wrong reasons, gunning them down without logical reason, or even if some are saying not to shoot, even if they don't have a weapon. Some that will just I don't know, stalk a person in their car, and then I don't know, make a phony call and then gun down the person while just going about. That is not what I feel is proper criminal justice. It is biased justice. It is wrong. It is unjust. And the way that Rudy Giuliani's mindset is, and I'll be truthful, I have a good amount of people in Royameadow and Company. I have at least, I'm going to say maybe 10, 12, 13 members in the team that are actually police officers here in the state of Massachusetts or in neighboring cities as well as abroad. I can also say that in Royameadow and Company, we also have a good amount of members that went on to go into military work, even though they still have a strong spot here now as a variety member because of their history with the military, even if they only did athletics or arts or even technology. In the regard of saying that Black Lives Matter, obviously, yes, that is indeed true. I will not ever contend to that. That is factual, and yes, we need to have stronger criminal justice reform so that people predominantly, so that people are not treated badly, predominantly black people. What I will also say in the case of what Rudy Giuliani says when he means that all lives matter, I do believe that humans need to stop attacking each other. Humans need to stop attacking each other either based on bias or because they don't like how somebody looks or what they're doing. If somebody's hurting somebody and somebody wants to prevent that from happening, then okay, that is a scenario where I do believe that all lives matter works. However, if you're just somebody casually walking about and you're an officer that decides to do a random check on them and then gun them down for no reason, then yes, I do believe that is unjust, and that is something that I believe that the term Black Lives Matter would apply to if it were an Afro American being gunned down, regardless of whichever nationality that officer is. But as I said, there needs to be, I can't stress this enough, criminal justice reform needs to be implemented so that matters don't happen in which a charge on a crime and where a sentencing doesn't fit the crime at hand, or where somebody gets more time just for being a certain nationality as opposed to a white Catholic. That is also something that I feel needs to be discussed more here in the city of Lynn, Massachusetts. And I'm going to go back to the corruption of the Latham administration on this matter. Why am I bringing up this? Because during my time in Lynn Public Schools, this was especially in Lynn English Senior High, what I have commonly seen time and time again is athletes and the valedictorians, as well as those in the honor society, end up becoming so privileged to the point where presidential races in schools got rigged, where athletes could commit B and A class felonies, including hazing and rape, without getting charged. Where lesbians could be kicked out just because of whatever they're wearing. Where women could be potentially get sexually assaulted by the vice principals. Where Hispanics and Afro Americans are treated horribly by the vice principals to the point where they have the highest suspension rate as opposed to every single white person in the school. And also, if you are not a Catholic, you're not going to get a free, easy time. All of that's got to change. All of that has got to change. When you think of criminal justice reform, Don't think of just what would happen in the legal system. Think of how it would affect your businesses, how it would affect your schools, and how it would affect your public society elsewhere. It's not just law, it's everything else that goes with it. That, I feel, needs to change immediately if we want to feel peaceful and secure in our modern times, or else we will see more false incrimination, more false tragedies, and more of the same crimes happening just because of privilege. That does not deserve to happen anymore. Going back to Giuliani, though, going back to Rudy, when he was at the podium in tonight's convention, or at least for night one, I'm astounded. Out of every other point in the convention, Rudy Giuliani's speech was the most watched portion of the convention. You could hear the cheer in Donald supporters and in regular Republicans alike. Some could say that I'm even dumbfounded by the fact that Rudy Giuliani is the true main event of the show. You can say all you want about Donald and Melania at the end, but no, Rudy was the main event. I'll be truthful. I actually only watched night one just because of Rudy. I was not actually anticipating for anybody else that showed up. So it was a good way to say that, hey, the big man's at the table. Let's hear him out. And yes, even though, yes, Rudy and I do disagree on a massive lot of things, I do personally believe that, yes, he was the talk of the party. He was the light of the party. So I do hope that we see him a little more throughout the week, and if he can't show up throughout the week, then I hope we see him in some interviews. So, again, he's one of the more entertaining people, and it probably just might be because he's from New York. I love New York. In fact, the Royameadow the Best of Generation 2 wallpaper that you have seen with me, the background for that's actually New York. I actually do intend on having a home base in New York at some point in future time. I'll get to that whenever the time comes. Just not now. Not now. But one of the other matters that I do want to bring up is actually kind of a bit of a disclaimer. And it is because of the fact that he had been talking about, and I appreciate the way that he said it, the term is not radical Islamic terrorism. In his view, it is Islamic extremist terrorism regarding our foreign issues, with matters such as what I will refer to as the false Islamic State, because I do believe that they have a rather false view of Islam in debatably some of the worst forms. And I do, even though yes, he had to comply by mainstream media rules, I'm glad that Rudy did say that yes, not all Muslims are bad. He's not saying that most Muslims are bad. He's just saying that there's a small group that has put the religion horribly out of proportion, and now virtually anybody that considers themselves to be a Muslim is in the worst case scenario, where they could just be treated so negatively by any race, regardless of who they're a part of. That I believe is a disgrace, and we do need to fix that going into the next matter of years, if not immediately. What I do also want to mention is also the matter regarding my personal stance, and this actually takes us into our next topic: clarification on the subject and/or existence of Islam in Royameadow and Company, as well as my personal religion, Royan polytheism. I've had this question brought to me on a few occasions. Let me be clear. I am not a Muslim. There aren't a lot of Muslims in Royameadow and Company, except for friends that I've made here in Lynn and Boston alike. throughout the course of this team, especially beginning in 2006, September of 2006. This is strictly for our international division. In 2013 and 14 alone, we had about 3 to 7% of members that actually were from either West Asia, aka the Middle East, and we also have a lot of people even on the domestic front that are indeed Muslims. But we've never had a problem with them. They are very great people, especially my fellow Arabic talkers, my fellow female Arabic talkers from Lynn Classical. I do miss them very dearly. They are very great people. Some also do have a mixture in which, in terms of religion, they don't just follow Islam, they also follow, like, Hinduism or Buddhism. Some also have a very extremely rare combination of Islam and being a part of Jehovah's Witnesses, which I'm rather surprised about, which I'm actually kind of grateful for, because I do feel that we do deserve to have some kind of positive relations with other portions of the Christians, because we do have strong support with the Protestants, we have strong support with the Lutherans, and because of the fact that the majority of those that do follow Christianity here in Lynn are Catholic, I have a strong bond with a lot of Catholic women in the city. Bear in mind, these are urban Catholics, not to be confused with the highly far-right Catholics that you see elsewhere in the nation, especially in Republican-dominant states. What I also want to clarify about on this, especially since I'm bringing up Royan polytheism, is the fact that, and I mentioned this during the World of Illusion commentary, but I didn't really give much time to talk about it. This is simply what Royan polytheism is. It is simply the fact that we acknowledge that every single religion and their religious leaders and beings, as well as deities, all exist somehow in both scientific and personal history. What I do not believe, however, is that we need to pick a side. We do not need to pick a side with any religion or religious leader, nor do I believe that any religion and or deity or being from any said religion is more dominant than another. Basically what I'm saying is we acknowledge everybody, we don't pick a side, we think everybody is equally powerful, even if physically they're not. That is at least the easiest way for me to put it. And I'm at least glad that I have never been criticized for using the star dog moon in the Royameadow logo. Let me be clear. There's a difference. The official logo for Islam is a crescent moon, a pointy crescent moon, mind you, with a 5-point star. In Royameadow 2014, I had to have the logo with a 5-point star as a placeholder. In 2013 and 14, I had to have it as a placeholder because I didn't have a particular drawing standard that I could use for digital episodes on the main channel. So I had to use something just for a little bit. That is why in modern day, the current rendition of the Royameadow logo is a circle star. That is how the original Royameadow logo in 2009 was developed. Or, yeah, late 2008, early 2009. And that was actually from something that I learned back in what I assume was October of 2008. It was in a 5th major class in grade 8 at Thurgood Marshall Junior High. Basically, one of the teachers from Cluster 5 came in, and he taught us about the star dog moon. There's a difference between the Islam moon and star and the Royameadow logo's star dog moon. The star dog moon is literally a star within the moon. That is a scientific impossibility. Because here's the thing, if you had a star within the moon that you could see, that's a pretty big deadly star. If you could see a star dog moon here down on Earth, you would think that's probably a comet or something. You would probably think, oh, duck, it's the end times or whatever. And, I'm surprised I brought up the matter on end times. Because I gotta be very clear on this. If we've learned anything from the 2012 prophecies that were false, I hope that some people understand, I hope that a lot of people understand that the fact that end times prophecies, the fact that ETP is talking about July 29 being the end times, people here in the States will probably say it's the end times if Hillary Rodham is the Democratic nominee, so I hope that Bernie gives her hell at the Democratic National Convention, which we'll be watching next week and covering next week with a few fellow members, wishfully if everything goes according to plan. But again, when in 2010, I was kind of considered a creep for bringing up the 2012 phenomena stories, which I'm glad were not true. I'm glad that I talked out against those matters. But wishfully, none of you sink into the whole July 29 crap. That is not true. It is not true. It is scientifically inaccurate. I won't believe it. If it happens, however, then, maybe I'll probably deliver an apology video, but it's highly unlikely. Highly, highly unlikely. It's a 99.9999997% kind of scenario. But don't take into it. Do not take into it. I do not endorse the views of end time prophecies, nor have I ever heard of them until today. So I've got no business with them whatsoever. I just feel bad that they're mentioning this now and having a good few 100,000 to millions of people actually getting scared about it. But other than that, I think you pretty much understand where I'm coming from with this. With the clarification on the subject of Royan polytheism in this team, and also the fact that the Royameadow logo is not a symbol of Islam. Also, I would like to mention about the reason why card suit symbols are in the logo. That is because of my association with the Order of the Magi. I've been following them since 2000. If you know me personally, you know that I use Robert Lee Camp's book Love Cards in order to understand astrological connections between other people. This is not an official endorsement, but if you want to buy it, it is available online. I think it's still $24.95. Do get a hold of it if you want to understand why your relationships with certain people are the way they are, and how certain bonds that you might have with some of your friends might be the way that they happen to be. I also recommend you to get Margaret Ward's English localization of Gong Hee Fat Choi, Book of Fortune and Book of Dreams, if you want to understand certain issues on the matter of fate. But with that said, I think we could get into the beginning of the last four topics. So it's time for Okay, that sounded horrible. Donald Trump presents. In a very Alfred Hitchcock style opening, with We Are the Champions playing in the background, Donald Trump's silhouette comes on screen. He's facing to the right. It's nothing but his shadow, and then he walks to the podium, in which his body begins to light up in a more WWF style opening. Yes, I'm one of those people that still says WWF, because I don't like I understand why they had to have WWE be used, because, World Wildlife Foundation had to have the WWF name, but this has unfortunately made it so that the WWE has to censor every time the WWF has been said. Instead of saying WWF, you hear WW and then no audio. That's right, they just call it the WW. Duck that. It's not World Wrestling, it's World Wrestling Federation. I will always recognize it as the Federation, not entertainment. But into that, he ended up delivering Melania Trump in what I assume was a 26 to 29 word intro. You can tell this was very scripted. Now, Melania, during the course of her speech, she ended up talking about, Donald, and saying, he'll never give you up, let you down. Never gonna run around and desert you. No. But she did pull off a Rick Astley. I will be adamant. Adamant? I don't say adamant, but no, I'll be truthful about that. I'm surprised that she pulled off a Rick Astley. But what I will also be truthful about is something that she was not truthful about. The Trump campaign had plagiarized from Michelle Obama's speech. And in some cases, word for word. Because I was listening to Melania and I'm like, wait a minute, what am I hearing here? This sounds familiar. I know I've heard it. And then when I found out just about, I'm going to say 27 minutes later, I'm like, what the duck? What the duck? Why would you do this to yourself? You have butchered the Donald campaign. I'm sure that the Obamas will probably be at their guts about this. It gives the Democratic Party one more reason to hate the Trump family as we currently see them. It's gonna be a crazy anus week, everybody. That's all I've got to say. And that is actually the end of the main portion of the convention. After that, we had CBS 4 News. We had Louisa Moeller. I love Louisa Moeller. She's debatably one of the greatest anchors of her time. Oh, wait a minute. She was talking about weather. She was talking about the weather. She was talking about because we actually had some bad weather here in Massachusetts earlier today, because we had trees coming down, we had blinding hail, you couldn't see a ducking thing. I was asleep the whole time that was happening, actually. What a shame. What a ducking shame. But I can't stress enough that, yes, Louisa Moeller is the Sandra Hughes of CBS 4 News. She is one of the better anchors, or... Yeah, she needs to be at the anchor desk. She's one of the better reporters of the modern generation, and I truly do hope that she sticks around very well for a rather long time. She's also been doing a good amount of campaign 2016 coverage. I think she was also covering, I think she was covering at Super Tuesday for Bernie's campaign. I'd have to double check that. This was way back in March, though. I'd have to double check my facts just to make sure I got everything right. But it appeared that everybody kind of had a bit of a balanced view with the way that everything went. But even John Keller agrees that it was kind of a bad night for night one, and it was because of the protests. It was because of the fact that, the delegate minorities couldn't get their roll call, that basically a lot of things went a bit haywire, and it was a bit too bad for comfort. So, if night 2 is better, if night 3 and 4 are better, maybe we'll probably see some improvement. But at this point, can't say. It was a balanced night. It was decent for what it was worth. I didn't get too much bad out of it. I got more good than bad. So that's all I'll accept. And then the Late Show with Republican Stephen Colbert? Yes! In the Late Show of Stephen Colbert, the Republican National Convention post-game show edition, day 1, we ended up getting Jon Stewart yet again. Yes, the Daily Show's Jon Stewart. He's finally back. But guess who else came back? Republican Party Stephen Colbert. Yes, Republican Stephen Colbert, the fictionalized version of Colbert from the Colbert Report, or the Colbert Report, as a lot of you refer to it as. Wow. Now I remember why I stopped watching the Colbert Report back in 2008. Well, aside from the fact that I didn't have cable anymore, but wow, he's still got it in him after all this time. It, also throughout that episode, it was also the same moment in which we got to see the full cut. Yeah, the full cut of what was going on when Steve was at the convention arena to introduce the Hungry for Power games. I can't get enough of that cue. Really can't. Again, if nobody was in this house right now, I would probably yell it from the top of my lungs, but I'm in no mood to do so right now because I don't want to accidentally wake anybody up. But going back to the Colbert Report bit, that scene with the fictional Steve had involved a little bit that he referred to back in the day as the word. And in this case, it was Trumpiness. Yes. Ha! Trumpiness is always so much more enjoyable. Oh, don't even get me started. I don't want to think about... I don't want to even think about what Donald's packing. I mean, Duck, Donald's on screen with me right now. I don't want to think that. Not now. Not at all. No. No. I am so sorry, everybody. This has been a crazy anus day. Also, might as well finish up with this. There was actually an opening track for this particular episode. It was a rather good special. And the opening track was something that we like to refer to as Christmas in July. You'll be seeing that on the Late Show channel on YouTube soon enough. I don't really know what to say about it, because Christmas in July, I have been told that, yes, Christmas is celebrated down south in June or July. I have also been told that we've had snow here in Massachusetts in the months of July and August, but I've never seen it. I want snow in July, dang it. Even if it has to be man-made through climate control, I want snow in July. But I would say that Christmas in July is probably one of the better songs that you're going to get out of this year, especially out of something from the heart of Broadway. So don't take it for granted. Download the song, listen to it, comment about it. You'll love it. That's all I've got to say on that. And wishfully, I could have said more about what was going on at the convention, but this is pretty much everything that really stood out to me. There was nothing else that was truly majorly important that I had seen anyway that was vital to talk about or even think of or have come to mind. So I'm at least glad that this commentary is pretty much over. It is well over an hour. Ugh, Doug. It probably might be 2 hours now. But I'll take it. This will be an easy edit. I've handled worse in my time. So, in closing, I hope that, security was the talk about day one. So, wishfully for day two, we end up talking more about the economy and our international trade. Let me go back. Just bear with me here. I need to think about the Republican National Convention schedule again, because I honestly am not sure. I type in Replican. Replican. Yeah, the Replican National Convention. That would be something. The duck. Okay, I guess I have to type it in more. I am horribly sorry, everybody that is watching. I did not expect that I would be doing this. At least not in this regard. Okay, alright, there it is. I'm going to have to go to the 2012 convention and then scroll down to 16. And then recheck who would probably be showing up at the... You're darn kidding me. Oh my goodness. Is this really going to take a long time for me to do? Seriously? This has never happened before. I've never had to just had to go through a page in real time while recording an episode this way. This is exactly not how I expected this would be handled, but... I guess this is what happens when you are kind of underprepared for a scheduling reading. Oh, there we go. 2016 Republican National Convention, and then just go all the way down to the bottom. So, okay, so here's who we'll be expecting on the 19th in the Make America Work Again portion of the campaign. So what this basically means is we're going to be hearing about jobs. We're going to be hearing about the economy. We'll be hearing about trade. So this is the official list of everybody that will probably be showing up. We might have some kind of wild cards, but this is who we'll be expecting. I'm not going to deliver any comments because I've already mentioned a good amount of them in the predictions and anticipations episode. So here's who we have. Sharon Day, co-chairwoman of the Republican National Committee. Dana White, president of UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Asa Hutchinson, governor of Arkansas, or Arkansas, as some of you know it as. Leslie Rutledge, Arkansas Attorney General. Sorry, I'm used to saying Arkansas now. Michael Mukasey, former U.S. Attorney General. Andy Wist, the businessman, described as the mystery man of the convention and is one of its most obscure speakers. Wist is a president for a waterproofing company in the Bronx. U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin. Chris W. Cox, the executive director for the National Rifle Association Institute for Legislative Action. Natalie Golbis, the professional golfer. U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell, the very controversial U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell, the current Senate Majority Leader and Republican from Kentucky. U.S. Representative Paul Ryan, who you better know as the Speaker of the House and also a Republican of Wisconsin. Ryan's speech is, in addition to his duties as official chair of the convention, a largely ceremonial role. He reportedly plans to tout his conservative House agenda and call for Republican unity in the speech, which I do hope is put into a decent way, but I don't think that would probably happen. Even Paul Ryan is scared of Donald. Then you have U.S. Representative Kevin McCarthy, the House Majority Leader. He's the Republican from California. You then have New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. You have Donald Trump's daughter Tiffany listed as a headliner. You have Kelly Woodlard, the general manager of Donald's winery portion, Trump Winery. You know, the wine, Donald's wine that you dump on steaks and eat it that way. Well done but not burnt is how I like my steak, woman. I was going to say woman. Dang it. I am horribly sorry. Then, of course, you have Donald Trump II, also listed as a headliner. You have U.S. Senator Shelley Moore Capito from West Virginia, also a headliner. The last two are also headliners. The retired neurosurgeon and unsuccessful candidate for 2016, Ben Carson, as well as actor Kimberlin Brown. This is a very odd yet business-oriented team. So, again, we're going to be seeing in day 2, it'll be a lot about jobs, it'll be a lot about the economy. Wishfully, they deliver some kind of discussion on international trade. We don't know how everything's going to turn out, but this looks like a rather decent group of people, but anything can happen. Anything can happen, including everything we've already seen today. So who knows? Who knows? Either way, I'm having fun as we speak, so I believe we're already past the 2-hour mark in this, at least before editing. It might be less than 2 hours before editing, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So with that, that's the end of the day 1 coverage. Stay tuned for later on in the night of July 19, Pacific Standard Time, because I can't upload these early enough on the Eastern Coast that I have to wait until Pacific Standard Time in the after dark hours. So yeah, it'll be a fun time for us for night 2. I'm glad that I could talk about this as much as I already have, so we'll see you in part 2 then. Have a good day, night, after dark, whenever the time you're watching this episode. Oh, man. Fun times. Fun times.